Okay, so picture this. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors made a huge, world-changing gamble, a bet that completely altered the course of human history. They decided to stop chasing their food and, for the first time ever, to start growing it. This is the story of that incredible bet, the shift to farming and how it literally built the world we live in today.
No, really. Think about that for a second. What if you had no permanent address? No town, no city, no country. Your whole life, you're just moving, following herds of animals, searching for plants you can eat. Your survival, day in and day out, depends entirely on what you can hunt or find. For almost all of human history, that wasn't a what if, it was just life.
Right. So before this big gamble on farming, everyone on Earth was a hunter-gatherer. Life was a constant journey. People lived in small groups, always moving across the land, building shelters that were just temporary, and carrying everything they owned with them. It was a tough life, for sure. But you know what? It worked. And it worked really, really well for a very long time.
And the change from one lifestyle to the other was massive. I mean, can you imagine going from a life of constant wandering in a small family group to suddenly living in one spot with a permanent house and being surrounded by a much larger community? This wasn't just a tiny tweak, it was a complete reinvention of what it meant to be a human being.
Then something incredible happened. It started about 12,000 years ago in a part of the world we now call the Fertile Crescent. Someone, somewhere, had a totally game-changing idea. What if, instead of just finding plants to eat, we could actually grow them ourselves, right where we want them? And that was the spark. That was the beginning of the farming revolution.
Now, their method wasn't magic. It was just brilliant observation and a whole lot of hard work. They figured out that if they picked the best, plumpest seeds from wild grasses and planted those, they'd get better plants. They learned how to clear the land, how to prepare the soil with basic tools made of stone and wood, and then how to harvest it all. For the very first time, humanity went from being food finders to food producers, a huge leap.
And this whole process has a name, and it's a really important one. Domestication. It's the key to this whole story. Domestication is just the process of taking a wild plant or a wild animal and, over many generations, taming it and adapting it for human use. It's how wild, scruffy grasses eventually became the wheat we use for bread, and how massive wild aurochs became the tame cattle we see on farms.
And of course, they didn't just stop with plants. People started domesticating animals too. It started with sheep and goats, which gave them a reliable source of meat and milk right on their doorstep. No more risky hunting trips. Later, they managed to tame bigger animals like pigs and cattle. And this wasn't just about food. These animals provided wool and skins for clothing and even manure to fertilize the crops. It was a perfect, self-sustaining system.
So, once you can grow your own food and raise your own animals, everything changes. You don't have to chase your food anymore. And if you don't have to move, well, then you can start to build. You can stay put. And this is where our modern world really begins to take shape. So for the first time in all of human history, people started building permanent homes, sturdy houses made from mud bricks and wood. And when you get a whole bunch of permanent homes clustered together in one place, you get something the world had never seen before, a village. It was a radical idea.
Now, this new life created new problems, which of course required new solutions, new technology. How do you harvest all that grain efficiently? Well, you invent stone sickles. How do you turn those hard grains into flour you can eat? You invent grinding stones. And the biggest question of all, where do you store all this extra food to keep it safe? You invent pottery. Each invention was a massive leap forward. All of this amazing new technology, the tools, the domesticated crops, it all led to one of the most important developments in human history, the food surplus. And that's just a fancy way of saying you can grow more food than you need to eat right away. You could store it, you could save it for the winter, or for a year when the harvest wasn't so good. For the first time, humanity had a safety net.
And this is the single idea that changed absolutely everything. Because think about it. If your village has extra food stored away, it means some people can stop spending all their time farming. They can do other things. This is the exact moment human society goes from being pretty simple to incredibly complex, almost overnight.
That food surplus wasn't just about having extra grain in a pot. It was about having extra time. It was about security. It was about opportunity. It basically gave humanity a chance to tear up the old rulebook and draw a completely new blueprint for how to live together.
I mean, just look at what that extra food unlocked. Suddenly, people could become specialists. They could be potters or builders or weavers. Villages could start trading their extra food with other villages to get things they needed. People had the time to just think, to experiment, to invent. And for the very first time, the idea of owning a specific piece of land, this is my farm, became super important.
And with all these new, different jobs, a new kind of social structure started to form, a social ladder. This was totally new for humans. At the top, you might have leaders who made decisions. You'd have priests who performed ceremonies to ensure a good harvest. You'd have artisans who had special skills. And at the base of it all, you had the farmers, doing the hard labor that fed everyone else. This was the birth of social hierarchy.
But, this new world wasn't perfect, not by a long shot. Farming came with a pretty serious health trade-off. On the one hand, having a steady food supply meant that the human population could absolutely boom. But on the other hand, people's diets became way less varied, mostly just a few grains. And with people and animals all living crammed together in villages, diseases could suddenly spread like wildfire. As these villages got better at producing surpluses, they started trading with each other, and the world's first trade routes were born. But here's the cool part. They weren't just trading pots and grain. They were trading knowledge. They were trading new ideas, new technologies, and different cultures. The world was starting to get connected. So, why does a 12,000-year-old revolution matter to us, sitting here today? Because we are living inside its legacy. Every single day, in almost every way, our world is built on the foundations that those first farmers laid down.
Seriously, you can draw a direct line. That simple, revolutionary decision to stop wandering and build a permanent village was the very first step on the long road to the massive, sprawling cities we all live in or near today.
And that brand new concept of owning land, the idea that this field is mine and that field is yours, that evolved directly into our entire modern system of property laws, of contracts, and the whole global economy. It all started there.
And maybe the most obvious connection of all. The wheat, the rice, the corn, the chicken, the beef that fills our supermarkets. They are the direct descendants of the very first plants and animals that our distant ancestors decided to domesticate, all those thousands of years ago.
So that great bet our ancestors made, it definitely paid off. It gave us cities, technology, art, basically modern civilization. But it also gave us brand new problems like social inequality, warfare over land, and pandemics. So the real question to think about is, in gaining this incredible new world, what parts of our old one did we have to lose forever?